One of the issues that Donald Trump is really under the water, probably his worst issue, is the Maryland man who is in El Salvador right now. It's something that...
Maryland man?
He is a Maryland man.
Come on.
What I will tell you
is... He is an El Salvadoran citizen. He is not a Maryland man. He is an illegal immigrant living in this country illegally for 14 years.
You can say whatever you want to say, Scott, but the American people...
This is why the polling is the way it is, because we're lying. We're lying.
We're not lying. The American
Scott,
people...
the peace orders were in Maryland when he was beating his wife.
The American...
Even though they have been saying that about him for weeks, that is not penetrating, and Americans are just misled, and that's why they don't like how Trump has handled this?
He has been saying that for weeks. And what has the entirety of the national news media been saying? He's a Maryland man. He's a mild-mannered suburban father. We have lied our rear ends off about this case. He is a El Salvador illegal immigrant. He came to the country 14 years ago illegally. There is a ton of evidence that he is involved in gang activity. There is a ton of evidence that he was involved in human trafficking.
It's an embarrassment.
Let me just respond to something you said,
go ahead.
which is that you said, well, you got to worry about the impact on the community.
Yes.
The president and the Justice Department and his people have to worry about the impact of illegal immigration on the country, because nobody's been worried about that for years. And the reason this is important is because this is one of Donald Trump's biggest criminal justice priorities, and frankly, it's one of the American people's biggest priorities to control this. And you know well, there are people all over towns, all over this country, who have been working overtime to try to stop him from executing on this agenda. If she turns out to be one of them, a spectacle is warranted so other people will stop doing it.
I appreciate it.
Let me tell you what offends
we really
me.
Gotta go.
Is that there are people and one political party in this country dedicated to re-importing illegal aliens hand over fist, and it is outrageous.
Boy. So we got to talk about the latest insanity from the Democrat Party. Yes, I'm telling you, the Democrats are getting crazier and crazier and crazier, okay? I mean, they've just decided to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Insane, okay? Trying to defend the indefensible, okay? Over the past few weeks, they have obsessed with the illegal immigrant, alleged gang member, wife-beating, human trafficker that we rightfully deported to an El Salvador prison, right? His own country, okay? They went over there looking like fools, traveling over there, trying to traffic an illegal immigrant back into the United States of America, showing us exactly how much Democrats love illegal immigrants. Not only will they open the borders for every illegal immigrant to come into this country that wants to come, as long as they say, yo tengo hambre at the border, right, then they're getting in, okay? That is what Democrats wanted, and they're showing you now that the border's closed that they're willing to go to other countries and to bring the illegals back to the United States of America after we deport them, okay? This is how insane the party is. Now they're going to let that story go, right? They're going to put down Obrego Garcia. They don't want to play with him anymore because they have what they believe is a better story to fearmonger about, which involves woke judges getting arrested for breaking the law, right? Like what happened to Judge Hannah Dugan out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in which she tried to shuffle illegal immigrants out of the courtroom in response to ICE showing up to make an arrest. She tried to help the illegal immigrants get away. She obstructed justice. But if you're watching MSDNC, you probably wouldn't know that because MSDNC is claiming that, no, she didn't break the law. In fact, they didn't talk about anything that she actually did, right? Any other allegations or specifics of the case. No. This is an attack on the judicial branch, right? According to Rachel Maddow and Jamie Raskin.
There's this individual case of this judge. There's also potentially the intimidation factor towards all judges, right? That this has an effect on trying to scare and intimidate judges into not ruling against Trump or otherwise acceding to Trump and the Trump administration's demands. When you say we must do whatever we can to defend the independent judiciary in America, what do you think that we should do? We've seen people instantly and spontaneously react by going to the courthouses, by going to the streets to protest. Do you think that matters, and what else do you think could?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everybody who aspires and attains to public office in America, regardless of which branch they're in, is just a servant of the people, and the people need to manifest their outrage about these assaults on judicial independence. The first branch of government, the legislative branch, Congress, must do the same thing. We must reject all of these attacks on individual judges.
Frankly, I was quite shocked I couldn't believe what I had seen. I was horrified by the actions of the FBI coming onto our county courthouse grounds, literally going after a sitting judge who's not a flight risk, and literally bringing so many officers to arrest her. I truly look at this as political showmanship, and there's absolutely no reason for the FBI to have carried out their actions the way that they did today.
The argument that the folks in the Trump administration are making is, hey, no one's above the law, including judges. This is an impartial and fair application of the law.
Well, I absolutely agree that no one is above the law. But that also means that no one is beneath its protections as well. And so we don't need to litigate this case out in public. We know we're going to see this happening throughout the court system. But regardless of the facts, this was put on to be a show. This is really to show intimidation of judges across the entire country because we know that Republicans in Congress have not been standing up to these terrible policies. It's been our judiciary. It's been our justice system. And so now they're under attack, and it's important now than ever that we're not only protecting due process, but talking about the need to protect our democracy.
Yeah. So I want you guys to understand, okay, the people who told us that nobody is above the law, right, when they were trying to lock up the president of the United States, are now basically making an argument that judges are, in fact, above the law, right? In fact, again, according to MSDNC, okay, the propagandists on their network, apparently the way the process is supposed to work when the judge breaks the law is that she's supposed to have other liberal judges determine whether or not she actually did something wrong, and then they decide what the punishment is for the judge. That the judge is not supposed to be subject to being arrested and charged with a crime, okay, when you have probable cause like the rest of society. Again, like the president of the United States was.
Do judges act in ways that are inappropriate sometimes? Yes. That is why there are judicial disciplinary panels in place for someone to make a complaint and have that board investigate whether or not some sort of disciplinary action is warranted in this case. So even if we accept everything the government alleges to be true, I do not accept them all to be true. We haven't gotten all the facts fully yet. That would have been the appropriate way to do it. But by sending in someone to arrest her in her courtroom is a violation of the separation of the branches. It's the executive trying to muscle the judiciary to bend to its will. It's dangerous, it's autocratic, and it's just not how things are to be done. The main purpose here, of course, is to intimidate the judiciary so that they do not get in the way of Donald Trump's policies, however lawful or constitutional they may or may not be.
Yeah. So again, liberals are now making an argument that judges are in fact above the law. Okay. And no. She didn't obstruct justice. No, that's not what she did. She obstructed fascism. Okay. They've now started to mix in their propaganda against Trump. This, he's a fascist, he's engaged in fascism type thing in order to justify what clearly is illegal behavior. Because again, according to them, this is justified stuff, even if it is illegal, because President Trump is a fascist.
So Judge Dugan was in her right in doing what she did. She didn't obstruct justice. She obstructed fascism in this case.
Because you're saying obstructing justice would be if this had been a court order signed by a judge, which it was not. So, as
right.
you know,
Right. Even in that case, it does not make sense. We should not have ICE agents in a protected space like a courtroom any more than you'd want ICE agents going into an operating room or a classroom. Those have historically been protected spaces that are off limits to ICE, and with good reason. You want people feeling safe and secure in a courthouse, either to come to their own trials or to testify against others. And this is really just an attack on the judicial system, which is historically a check and balance on unobstructed executive power. That's what we're seeing from the Trump administration.
Now, you worked with Judge Dugan, as I mentioned, for 4 years. Is her behavior, as it's reported, and Whitney was laying it out, what we know, in helping this immigrant consistent with the judge and the person that you know?
Absolutely. She is a prominent, respected member of the Milwaukee legal community. She is not part of any radical community, and I should know because I am. She's been a respected judge and a lawyer for many years without apparent controversy. targeting her makes no sense. And I think it really is designed to have a chilling effect on state and local officials and on anybody who would push back on the Trump regime.
So she was released on bond after her initial appearance today. You heard, her legal representative saying they're going to fight vigorously. They believe she'll be exonerated. But do you think, from knowing her, when you talk about the chilling effect of this or what the impact will be, is she willing to? How far is she willing to go? I mean, if it means serving time in jail, if it ever gets to that sort of a thing, is that something you think she'd be willing to do?
I mean, I'm not going to speculate as to whether or not she's willing to serve time in jail. It is absolutely ludicrous that these charges were brought to begin with. Somebody had just asked me this morning, what can we do to support Judge Dugan? And I said, well, obviously, there aren't going to be charges brought because she hasn't done anything wrong. And several hours later, she was in handcuffs. So this is not something that anybody anticipated. I think, nobody is trying to be a hero here. But Judge Dugan is doing what all of us will be called to do in the days and weeks and months to come, and it's standing up for people in our community that are being targeted by the Trump regime.
Yeah, so in plain English, I want you guys to understand, Democrats are basically saying that it's okay to break the law to protest Trump because Trump is a fascist. It's okay for us to break the law. Breaking the law is okay. In fact, no. Breaking the law makes you a hero, okay? You have some of these liberal media propagandists who are basically making an argument that, hey, this judge is engaged in civil disobedience, right? This civil disobedience is necessary in order to protest Trump, even if it is illegal.
This other story we're tracking, which seems to mark a different chapter in the ongoing immigration agenda of this administration, that was the FBI arresting and charging a sitting judge in Milwaukee. Now, the FBI says that she obstructed their agents when they were trying to arrest an undocumented immigrant who was in her courthouse. It's been reported she allowed him to leave through a side door. But what does this say to you now in terms of what the administration is willing to do and how this was carried out?
Well, obviously, they're trying to send a note of intimidation, not only to her, but to all judges and maybe to all Americans. But I don't yet know the specific details of this case, whether she escorted the guy out the jury door or whether she's let him. So that's all murky. I don't want to comment on this specific case. But especially on the issue of immigration, there are a lot of people who are appalled by what the administration is doing. And there will be times for civil disobedience. And to me, let's say she did escort this guy out the door. If federal enforcement agencies come to your courtroom and you help a guy escape, that is two things. One, it strikes me as maybe something illegal, but it also strikes me as something heroic. And in times of trouble, then people are sometimes called to do civil disobedience. And in my view, when people do civil disobedience, they have to pay the price. That's part of the heroism of it, frankly. And so you can both think that she shouldn't have legally done this, and that morally protecting somebody against, or maybe not even in this case, but in other cases, frankly, a predatory enforcement agency. Sometimes civil disobedience is necessary. And I don't know if we'll get to this point, but we could get to this point in weeks or months where acts of civil disobedience on a lot of fronts may be necessary. And the Trump administration will probably welcome that kind of fight, but their opponents should welcome that kind of fight. And that's one of the ways you can shift public opinion, because one of the ways authoritarians lose control is when their opponents protest in a nonviolent way and the authoritarians crack down violently. That's the way you delegitimize an authoritarian regime. And so that it may come to that.
Yeah, except Democrats don't protest nonviolently, right? Every time Democrats protest, it is basically a violent protest, okay? But you can see what the liberal media is calling for, right? What these people are just saying out loud. They're saying, well, listen, even if she did something illegal, it's okay because the civil disobedience is necessary, right? These agencies are predatory, okay? And in this case, it sounds to me like this dude is saying that it is an act of heroics to save illegal immigrants from being deported by ICE, okay? This is what they're basically saying, okay? It makes you a hero to save illegal immigrants. Now, in this case, the illegal immigrant who the judge tried to save from ICE was violent, right? It was a violent individual, and he was in court because of his violence. And these Democrats, for whatever reason, believe that it makes you a hero to save these people, right? Just like they thought it makes them heroes to go and try to save a gang member in El Salvador. I'm not sure who is advising these people Okay, but this is Cocoa Puffs insane, right? I did not imagine Democrat Party becoming this crazy. Okay, I thought these people were crazy 2 or 3 years ago, but they have ratcheted up to a level that I just never thought imaginable, right? This is insanity. Okay, the Democrat Party of the 90s would not recognize whatever you want to call the Democrat Party today. Okay, they have fallen off of a far left cliff. That's what they've done. And the fact is that they don't realize that they've gone down a rabbit hole in which they are just completely and totally out of step with the American public. I don't know why they think this plays well. The judge is not above the law. She tried to help an illegal immigrant escape. Why are you guys trying to harbor illegal immigrants? That's the real question. When 60% of the American people want all illegal immigrants deported, why are you trying to protect them? Why are you trying to fly to other countries and bring them back here? I don't understand. I don't get it. Actually, no, I do understand. I do get it, right? The illegal immigrants are important for their agenda, right? It's important. That's their future voters, their future voter base. They're desperate. They know that if they don't win over the next 5 to 6 years, they're cooked. They have until 2030 to get it together. And their biggest hope is that they can somehow, some way allow these illegals to vote. This is why they protest and they get so upset anytime the GOP does anything at all to enforce basic election integrity. Just basic stuff. Voter ID laws, racist, right? Proof of citizenship, to vote, racist. No, right? You should have to prove you're a citizen to vote in our elections. This is the modern day Democrat Party. So, you know, it's funny to me. This right here, again, is not the hill for them to die on, but they're really gonna go hard on this one. They're not gonna let this one go, right? This is the one that they're really, really, really gonna dig deep on. They're gonna forget about the illegal immigrant in El Salvador. All of a sudden, that won't be a constitutional crisis anymore. Again, this is a new constitutional crisis, and it's just not gonna work. It's not gonna work. This woman broke the law. Okay. And ultimately she has to be held accountable because as Democrats told us for the last 4 years straight, nobody is above the law, right? Nobody is above the law. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.